All right. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of our weekly Wednesday Lunch and Learn, where I have the opportunity to get to interview some of the top agents all across the country because things are very busy across the country, and love to understand what is happening in the East Coast in this example. And then people, obviously, when they tune into my show, they are able to see what's happening here in the Bay Area. But let's get started. Welcome to the show, Bonnie. Please tell us a little bit about which area you cover, and also what did you actually do before real estate?
Sure. It's nice seeing you today, and thanks for tuning in, everybody. So my name is Bonnie Lai, and I worked in the Boston area in Massachusetts. So pretty much the area that I serve is the all greater Boston area, which pretty much means an hour radius outside from the city as well. So I personally live in, Boston, so it's pretty easy for me to get anywhere, pretty much like all the suburbs around Boston. So prior to real estate, so a little bit about myself. Prior to real estate, I actually, work as a music educator in the public schools system, and as a band director, I taught chorus. I taught orchestra, so I taught piano for many years, and then I transitioned into accounting. Got my master's in both music education and finance, and then kind of doing both, for many years together, and then but I didn't really love the 9 to 5. It wasn't really my personality because I just like to talk so much. I just love people so much, and the educational piece of things that I love, you can't really quite do it at the desk as an accountant. So I jumped into real estate in 2014. I've been doing this for about 6 years. Have been with Remax for 3. This is going on the 4th, and doing really well. In the market in Boston is crazy right now.
Yeah, so let's learn a little bit about kind of the trajectory, right? In 2014, and then we'll talk about the local market after. In 2014, did you do it part-time at the time? Did you make the transition just straight cold turkey? Like, what was that experience?
I actually jumped both feet in and dive in very hard. So I started actually as a rental agent at first, because where I live is right in the middle of the college area. So where I live is very close to Boston University, Boston College, MIT, Harvard University. So everything is just so close by. So I thought that being in the rental business will be a little more stable than doing sales, because I saw what happened in 2008, and quite frankly, it scared me when I was not an agent looking in, right? And now I'm an agent looking into the market. Rental, I was just discussing this with you. Rental is kind of scary right now.
Sure, right.
Yeah, so I did rental the first year, and then I accidentally did a few sales on my first year as well, and realized that I actually like doing sales a lot more. So I transitioned into doing sales, but I love the fact that I have the rental background, because it really learned me to work in a very fast pace, learn how to hustle, and you don't wait. Everything is right now. So it actually really helped me to transition into the sale. And honestly, I kind of miss how fast I have to work. Once you get into the sale, everything seems a little slower.
That's interesting. From the rental agent, I mean, here in the Bay Area, I don't think we have too much of that. Like, what is that model? Is it basically some person needs help? I mean, a lot of people today, I presume they also just search online themselves and find a place themselves. What did you actually do as a rental agent? Did people go to you and say, hey, look, Bonnie, help me find, I don't know, an apartment for under $3,000, whatever it is? How did it actually work?
So most of the rental agencies in Boston, and I'm talking about there's hundreds of them within the same, few blocks, you're going to have so many rental offices. So mostly all the offices have their own inventories, and you might have a few huge management companies that will kind of let all the rental companies to help them rent out all their inventories. So in a way, it's kind of like a rat race, because everyone is going after the same things. And if you have more in-house inventory, so clearly, you're going to market those, Craigslist is what we used a lot back then, Zillow. Everyone is out there posting ads all the time. That's how you get people contacting you and hopefully being able to rent the right space for them. But one downside about rental is that there's really no customer loyalty, because if you want what's best for your client, you really want them to find the right space, even though it might not be with you. And in the Boston market, not a lot of agents are willing to actually share the broker fees. So it's kind of tough. You're pretty much restricted to just rent out what you have in your inventories. And if you put it on an MLS, then, pretty much, then hopefully you can help your clients out to rent out spaces faster. But that just means you have to share your fee, which I'm personally okay with, but a lot of rental agencies are not.
That's interesting. From that perspective, is that market still big today, of the rental agency market, or given the plenty of websites out there, has that market shrank a lot?
Honestly, I do think the competitions are getting very cutthroat, as technology start catching up. But I also see that as a leverage. The people, like the good agents who know how to stay ahead of the game, will always still, attract the right people, because they're going to market it right. Instead of, marketing 300 listings at the same time, they might just focus on the best ones they have, and then rent those out and keep moving on with the list. So I do think those websites can, some landlords choose to do it themselves, but they don't want to, because it's a much easier process when you have someone doing all the showings and screening for you. So I do think the industry itself is still intact, but it is, you do get discouraged pretty easily if you don't want to stay in the game.
Right. Got it. And so tell us about your first year. I mean, you did the transition right from the rental side to the buying and selling side. Was it easier or harder than you thought it would be to get started, to get that going?
To be honest with you, I think rental to me was harder than sales, because I'm a relationship person, and all these buildings in Austin, Brighton, and Cambridge don't have elevators. So I actually lost a lot of weight being a rental agent, which, like, looking back, it might have been a good thing. But I do think, like I said, rental is such a number game. Sales, you can build relationship, and long-term relationship. Your buyers and your sellers. Hopefully, if you're a good agent, they will be more loyal, than a renter would. So I think the transition was pretty easy for me, because I purchased my own home before. That's why I became a realtor. My specialty is to work with a lot of first-time home buyers. My niche is exactly that. It's the reason why I got into the business. I helped myself buy my first home. I helped my parents, and I helped my friends. So it just become a very natural thing. I'm from Hong Kong originally, so real estate is a really big part of our culture back at home as well. So I'm sure in San Francisco, a lot of people feel the same way.
Got it. And then can you share like some of the production figures, like how many you did the first year, and then like whether you want to share what was last year or year to date? That'd be great for people to kind of have an idea like where you are.
Yeah, I am actually very happy with what I've been doing since I started in the industry. So the first year I was just doing, straight rental, and I pretty much broke even with what I made as a salary back when I was in the accounting job, which was not bad.
Right.
I worked really hard. And then the second year I've done, I want to say like close to 5 million. That's my first sales year, which is not bad. Then I went up to 8 million, 15 million. Last year I've done 20 mil. This year I'm going to surpass 25. So I'm definitely, kind of showing a healthy amount of growth. And my business just kind of generate itself, because, when you do good work, people come back to you.
That's awesome. And do you have a team right now, or is it just solo?
Solo for the most part, but I do team up with agents based on, different situations. I do get a lot of referrals from other agents as well.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about the local market, right? So what is the average price point? You're happy to learn about the different suburbs in general, or if you want to say kind of a blanket statement of what an average home price is in your market.
So I was kind of like, it's tough because Boston is such a big area, and we have many different price points based on different neighborhoods. So I would say there are definitely neighborhoods 30 minutes away from Boston, average price point might be around 300, or 400K.
Okay.
And then you'll have something more like Metro West. The average price point is probably at least 600 or 800, depending on the neighborhoods. So being in such a large area where the different pockets of the zip codes makes huge difference. It's really hard to pin down, exact number. But personally, my business range from 300 to 1.5 mil. That's where my sweet spot is.
And walk us through, like, for that average price point, what kind of home is that? Like, what kind of square foot of a home? Is it an old house? Is it a new house? Kind of paint the image of what something like that can buy in Boston.
Sure. So let's just say if you're an investor, you're looking to purchase a condo in Austin, Brighton, or Cambridge. Usually a one bedroom is around 5 to 600 square foot. And then, a two bedroom is probably under 800, and the price range is starting, a one bedroom right now in Austin, Brighton is around 350. And then in Cambridge, a one bed is well over 500. So,
really?
So there's a big price, difference depending on the zip code. And then if you're looking at a single family in Boston, is pretty tight. I would say most of the homes in Boston right now is well above $500,000. If you want something nicer, it will probably around like 800, 700K.
Wow. Okay. And so, walk us through the market of the year, right? Maybe in the beginning of the year, before the shelter in place, and then what has happened over the last 7 months over time.
Honestly, 2020, who would have thought?
Yeah.
I think back in 2018, 2019, a lot of real estate, professionals were kind of worried about a potential downturn. And of course, because the interest rate was staying so low that the market just keep on going higher and higher and higher. Even as a, realtor, we're kind of shocked how high things are getting, right? I'm sure you experienced the same thing, in the West Coast. But I think in the East Coast, we actually have a very strong start of the year in the beginning, for the first 3 months before COVID really hits. I think most of the realtors I know was trending higher than the year before, just because the demand was so high from people just trying to take advantage of the lower interest rate. And then when the COVID hit in Massachusetts, we started having the more not mandatory lockdown, but more so advisory for people to stay home. That was in mid-March, and then things just completely stopped but not for too long, only for about a month. So I would say mid-March and mid-April, personally, my business was exactly showing that as well. People kind of, took a break to kind of trying to pause and see what is the right way to do the business right now, to make sure that you're not exposing your clients, and make sure people that come in to see homes will be well protected. But I do have to say Massachusetts is one of those state where we were very lucky. So our governor, Baker, I personally felt like he has done a very good job to find a balance. He actually decided that, real estate is also under the essential business. So we were able to conduct business and do the closing even throughout this time. And I know you guys are pretty, had it pretty tough in the West Coast. You guys have a complete lockdown, right?
No, actually, I mean, we did initially, like I think most places, but that was only for about 2 weeks. And then basically in late March, we were an essential service too. So we were showing houses already at that time. So real estate, obviously people had a different, people got scared during that time, but we were able, for those that still wanted to go see houses still and to buy houses.
So same in the, the state of Massachusetts, we were able to, I think every agent take their own precaution to do open houses as they feel like is best. The market has just been soaring since April. I remember getting calls from all my clients on the same week of April. I think people were just bored staying at home because they all come home.
Yeah,
That means they can just sneak out in the middle of the day and go to rooms with me, and that's what they did. I'm not going to throw any names, but people who close around like April and May, those are the people who snuck out in the middle of the day to go see homes.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. And then the market pretty much just, single families has been just outpacing everything else.
Right.
Condos since then everywhere has been dropping
Okay.
everywhere. So
Really?
single family anywhere is just going insane. I've had people like they have to bid like 20% above asking. It's insane. Like I think like 7% above asking is just very basic nowadays. It's very tough for first-time home buyers or people who don't have a big down payment to be able to get into houses these days.
So that's great. It's interesting to hear about the percent over list price. From when you actually compare sold prices, how does it fare to same time last year or even to March? Like what's the difference of single family for that, if you have an idea percentage wise, or at least a guess?
Well, I think it's pretty much. I feel like it's actually more so than before COVID, because I'm very used to the competition, before COVID. And after COVID, I thought things might cool down a little bit. It didn't. The overbidding actually became worse. I think
Right.
it's because like there is less inventories because sellers are not willing to sell at this time, having so many people coming into the house. So we actually have a worst case scenario where we have lower inventory, but yet the demand to buy is a lot higher because everyone want to move out from the city and move into the suburbs. So it's therefore the overbidding like percentage totally went up at least another 5%.
Interesting. But then at the same time, condos are very weak.
Yeah.
Like how much weaker from a price perspective would you say? Would you say?
I would say, let's just put it this way. Good listings will still be gone almost immediately within the first 2 days because there will always be like very smart investors watching what is out there. So I would say instead of like dropping a lot, I think it went soft for most places. And there are places, homes that would have been sold within a week if you talk about before March. And now it will take maybe a month to a month and a half to actually get sold. And they mostly will not get asking. And you're talking about maybe 10 to 15% drop.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any different in the downtown Boston market versus condos that are more in the suburbs per se? Is it the same effect?
I would say the city drops more, especially the luxury stuff.
Right.
I think there's a lot of brand new constructions out there that, is putting a lot of pressure, into the luxury market too. I think, they're just, I think that the demand of the condos right now temporarily has cooled down. In the suburb area, condos have seen drops as well.
Really? Okay. So just the preference of that is just not as high. Are there many townhome developments in Boston, or is it not a common thing there?
There's a lot of flips. So there's a lot of like condo conversion from multifamilies. So you're gonna see a lot of towns that started restricting. Like for example, Somerville have placed some, very restrictive rules about how the flip can be sold. Within a year, especially if you have tenants in there, you can't quite just turn around and make it into a condos immediately. So it depends on the area, but there's a lot of, people are still looking for opportunity, but I think the math doesn't quite work as well in the city area. So you see a lot of investors are kind of going further out. Some even go to Worcester, which is like an hour away from Boston. But if you're very experienced and if you know what you're doing, like developers are not exactly scared. They just raise the price, for the home. So you're basically paying for the cost of the, like increased cost to do business these days. To build, it is more expensive to build nowadays.
Right. Is we're basically in mid-October now, right? Have things slowed down at all? Have they picked up, or is it about the same from let's say 2-3 months ago? Yeah.
I was so curious to find out myself because when September hit, I actually talked to a lot of other real estate agents and see if they get a sense of what do you think? Do you think that the parents are going to stop looking because now the kids are back to school? Even though they might be just learning remotely from home, the pressure is still on. So from what I noticed, because now it's October, in September, things definitely did slow down, especially over the long weekend, which is something we just had this weekend. A lot of homes actually didn't end up getting sold this weekend because I think people are actually away, which I don't think we are supposed to, but people are away anyway.
Yeah. I'm not sure where they would go, but yeah.
So I guess not much has changed. Like people are still, trying to get out of the house whenever they can, and they're not sticking around for the long weekend to look at more homes.
Interesting. So you suspect it has already slowed down in the area?
Slightly. I wouldn't say it's stopped, but I think the motivated buyers are still actively looking. They're definitely not hardcore, putting 3 offers a week, because some of my buyers have been doing that, like 3 offers a week. And now it's slowed down to, okay, maybe every other week I'll go put in an offer, It's so competitive that some people have to just keep trying and trying until they get one,
What are the drivers of people moving or living in Boston? So I know it's a huge college town, as an example, just not the college town, but there's a lot of colleges. But what are the main drivers of people that end up buying a property? Is it, like you mentioned, is it the parents that buy investment property because their kids are living in it? Is it, what are the drivers in general?
I think like Massachusetts or Boston specifically is such a special town, like, or city, because there's so many high-paying jobs. We have the technology field, we have the pharmaceutical field, we have the medical field, we have the colleges. So I think, that the income is good and strong. And that's why even with a market that seems scary to a lot of people in the rest of the country, I think Boston just keep having that demand is because people are not scared. As long as our job is secure, they're always going to buy. And we have so many good school systems, right around the Boston area, like Newton, Wellesley, Lexington, Sharon, and in the South, South Shore area, Winchester. I just closed one there today. Like personally, my business is all around Boston, so I notice. People always go to the towns where the high school education is good, for the kids.
Interesting. And any forecasts or predictions of the next 6 months or so? Do you think you'll stay kind of what it is? What is your general feeling as of right now?
I'm seeing a little more price drops even for the single family right now, which is something I didn't see 2 months ago.
Okay.
So I'm sensing there's going to be a slowdown. And let's face it, every cycle is about 10 to 12 years, right? Every real estate cycle. So we had our, last slowdown in 2008, and then we came back very strong in 2012. And now 8 years later, I think it's natural to see a little adjustment. Rather, is it going to crash or not? I don't think we're expecting a crash unless something like, I honestly thought the virus will impact the housing market more than right now, but it didn't really slow down much except for the condos and some homes that are not as desirable. But I think it will be normal to see a little more slowdown, but I'm not seeing the demand slowing down though.
Yeah, it's interesting because every market is certainly different. Like for the Bay Area, we had a drop before in 2018 through basically end of 2019. It dropped in some areas 10% already. But then with this, the home is even more valuable than ever before because people are spending actually way more time at home. Yeah. And then you have that paired up with how low interest rates are. Everybody's buying power is much higher. And then you pair that up with remote working. Now, why do people want to spend the exorbitant amount for a luxury rental when they can easily own a home for the same amount, if not even less?
Right.
So it's just like a huge change. But go ahead.
One thing about luxury rentals in the Boston area is that right now they're slashing the prices so much. Right. People are getting like a few months for free and a deduction on the rent by $1,000. Like they used to charge $3,300, and they're saying that if you would sign a lease with them next year, they would drop the rent by $800 to $1,000 and give you free rent and no broker fee. So right. I mean, It depends. I think it depends on people's needs. And I think it will also depend on how the corporation will react after COVID, if they're going to demand people to start coming into the office, because I know some jobs have changed forever, like Twitter, right? Twitter have everyone to work from home like forever, like not forever, but for a very long foreseeable time. And I think a lot of commercial space is going to be impacted even bigger, because I think some companies might not go back to the way things were, period.
Yeah, Twitter is interesting because they catch a lot of the headline articles. At the same time, Twitter only has 2,000 people. So they're a tiny little company that, quite frankly, caught a lot more attention than
That's true.
they realistically would. So they're
Yeah.
really, really small relative to a lot of these companies. But
Yep.
because of their significance in the social media aspect, they have caught a lot of eyeballs in
Yeah.
the past. So
They
uh,
sort of know how to make a lot of noises.
yeah,
But like in Boston, we have a lot of financial services, companies like JP Morgan,
sure.
State Street, Brown Brothers, like New York Mellon. They have been trying to move away from, having people to work at the office 5 days a week for quite a long time. A lot of companies started outsourcing as well. So I think the need of commercial space is also, might be readjusted in general.
It's interesting that you say that actually as well, because JP Morgan actually said not long ago that they want people back in the office immediately. They
Yeah.
did that in New York as well. Like this just the productivity and the collaboration is
Yeah.
very bad,
So
right?
my friend personally works for Brown Brothers Harrisman, who is also in financial services, and
Right.
so he has been working from home since March, and they're saying that they're not bringing them back until next year. So we'll see. But like someone like company like State Street, they already try to push people to work from home like 2-3 times a week before COVID. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Yeah, and there's certainly a lot of questions, but people are still making their bets clearly. Otherwise, they wouldn't be investing or buying, a suburb home that's cost more now than they did before.
Yeah.
So it's certainly really interesting. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the insights about the local market. It's always fascinating to hear kind of the perspective, but also what's happening in the area. I think Boston, I mean, clearly it shows it's still very resilient, even though a lot of it is due to all those college campuses, and who knows what's happening with that. But it's still a highly diverse place, which is also the really interesting part. Is
Yeah.
there if anyone has interest about the Boston market, whether they're moving there, they're maybe potentially looking to sell, or there may be an investor, what's the best way of people to get a hold of you?
Sure. So I'm very active on Facebook, right? So if you Google Bonnie Lai, Remax Unlimited, you will find me there. My cell phone number is 617-309-7093. And my email address is my name, Bonnie Lai, BONNIELAI .remax, REMAX @gmail.com. And well, let me know anytime you need anything, Spencer.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, no, thank you so much, Bonnie, for your time. Thank you, everyone else, for tuning in to another edition of our weekly Lunch and Learned, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye now.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks for making it to the very end of my YouTube video. If you like the content, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that little bell as well, since it'll give you notifications of when my next episode is. If you know of anyone that is considering to buy or sell a home here in the Bay Area, I'm never too busy to help more people. Always welcome to have a conversation, regardless if you're ready to go right now or if you wanted to buy 5 years later. Click on that calendar link, and then you'll be able to book an appointment with me and love to have a conversation about your situation. In the meantime, I also do have a monthly newsletter, so feel free to hit that link below, and then you'll be able to get my updates, personal updates that I write once a month in terms of what is going on with the market and some of my latest activities. Hope to see you at the next one. Thank you.